My source tonight is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Delaware Senator Chris Coons. Senator, it's great to have you here. Just first, on this news from the New York Times reporting on this chart, it was something from the DOJ investigation that did not result in any charges here, but it's something that speaks to what the House Ethics Committee has been looking at, according to the Times, as they're putting together this report that may or may not come out. Just what is your reaction to that right off the bat?
Well, Kaitlan, as you just heard from Republican Senator Markwayne Mullins, former Congressman Matt Gaetz has denied that he had anything to do with paying for sex, with sex with a minor, with illicit drug use. And there's a lot of relevant documentary evidence that was compiled both by the Department of Justice and by the House Ethics Committee. And I think it will eventually, in one way or another, come out. I think it is important that we on the Senate Judiciary Committee have an appropriate opportunity to review those materials and find out whether or not the nominee to be the senior law enforcement officer for the entire United States, the Attorney General, the man in charge of the Department of Justice, has been publicly lying over and over. Let's also, Kaitlan, not be too distracted by the more salacious aspects of this nomination, by these allegations about Matt Gaetz' personal conduct. We also need to remember the substance of it. President-elect Trump has chosen someone who has shown himself to be an unflinching loyalist, willing to do virtually anything he's asked by the president-elect because he wants to use the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies. This is an agency charged with keeping us safe, with counterterrorism work, with national security work, with enforcing federal law. And it's a large and complicated agency. I think we should be asking as many questions about why is this a good idea? Is this what the American people voted for in this election, as we spend talking about whether or not Matt Gaetz did or didn't pay for sex?
Well, you just heard Mark Caputo reporting that what Gaetz is pitching to Republican senators from the Senate Judiciary Committee with you today was that they're not actually going to weaponize the Justice Department, that is not his agenda, going in there to go after Dr. Fauci or these other people that Trump has threatened. What do you make of that?
I wouldn't believe it, frankly. I think it would be a huge relief if, in fact, President-elect Trump abandons what has been an agenda that he's talked about over and over in his campaign. He said hundreds of times, "I am your retribution." And he has talked about putting former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney in front of a tribunal, about charging those who testified against him in a variety of different settings on trial for treason. I don't think it's healthy. I think that violates some of the foundational rules of our system. And frankly, I think a lot of the folks who voted for President-elect Trump were voting for him to lower prices, to strengthen the economy, and to move forward, rather than to dedicate so much time and energy to grievances and looking backwards. But this is a decision senators will hopefully get to make in a confirmation hearing. Hopefully, our Republican colleagues here in the Senate won't consent to a recess confirmation and simply allow him to be pushed through without a confirmation hearing.
Yeah, Senator Lindsey Graham called on your colleagues not to join what he referred to as the lynch mob, and he said, after years of being investigated by the Department of Justice, no charges were brought against Matt Gaetz. Is that a fair argument in your view?
Of course. I mean, that's factually true, but it's not dispositive. We are considering a different issue here in the Senate. It's not, can we get a jury to convict him for criminal conduct? It's, is he an appropriate person to lead the U.S. Department of Justice? These are different questions, and looking at different evidentiary standards and different considerations. Obviously, there is a common question about whether or not former Congressman Gaetz has the appropriate character to be the Attorney General. But when the Department of Justice looks at charging someone with a crime, their core question is, can we convict them? Because in an overwhelming majority of the cases where they charge, they secure a conviction. That's a very high standard of proof. Here the question is, do we think he's done things that are arguably of a quality and nature that he couldn't pass a background check, and he shouldn't be entrusted with the forces of the Department of Justice?
Yeah, of course, big questions about the background checks here as well for these picks. Senator Chris Coons, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kaitlan.